FOG number 63 is Kevin Walters. Kevin is in an elite group of FOGs to have both captained and coached Queensland at origin level. A six-time Premiership winner with the Brisbane Broncos and the Canberra Raiders, Kevin Walters was one of the first players to be inducted into the Broncos Hall of Fame. In 1990, Kevin was named the Brisbane Broncos Player of the Year and holds the record for the most final appearances for the club. Kevin Walters played 291 NRL games, 20 origin matches for Queensland and 11 tests for Australia. In 2025, Kevin was named coach of the Kangaroos, replacing fellow FOG Mal Meninga.
Well, Kevin Walters, thanks for your time. What does it mean to you to be a FOG?
Oh, look, just one of those life experiences. I mean, you're a FOG for life, but, my first experience with state of origin football was here, at Lang Park, the building behind us. As a 13-year-old boy from Ipswich, we jumped in the car. My brother was playing in the curtain raiser against New South Wales in the under-18, so we got here early. And the queue, we drove the Kingswood down, by the way, the station, yellow station wagon. So it was Mum and Dad and the four boys. Brett was obviously playing. And Dad didn't have tickets. In those days, there was no ticket tech, anything to pre-book tickets. So we got here and we parked the car not far from Lang Park, and then we saw the lineup was all the way up Milton Road around on Hale Street. That's where we were trying to get into the outer. And this queue went all the way back to the brewery. And Dad said, well, there's only one way in here. And he was a carpenter, so we got the pliers out and cut a hole in the fence. And we raced through along with about 10,000 other Queenslanders. And from that moment, when Arthur ran out, it still gives me like goosebumps thinking about it. He had froth coming out of his mouth and the white powder on his chest. And it was just a moment that stayed with me. And I thought, well, one day I want to come back here and play in this arena because I think it would be one of the best things in your life. And it was right. So I'm fortunate enough to do that. And from that moment forward, the Queensland jersey has always been so special for me. I mean, I played underage football for Queensland, but nothing like state of origin. And that feeling when you get in the dressing room before you run out, there's no greater feeling.
We'll get to that a little bit later, but let's go back to the start. Growing up in Ipswich, you weren't born in Ipswich, but moved there as a young age, born in
Rockhampton.
Yeah,
we moved there as a young family. There was five of us, five boys. My mum's father was in the railway, so he became a station master at Ipswich, and beside the Ipswich train station was the rail master's house, where they used to give you a house if you're the station master. So Mum and Dad moved down from Rockhampton with my grandparents because that was their support for us, because Mum and Dad were both working. Mum was part-time as a nurse and Dad obviously full-time as a carpenter. So we five kids needed some looking after. So Grandma and Granddad used to do a lot of that as well. And just growing up in Ipswich was absolutely amazing. Perfect place for a young Queensland kid, with your rugby league in the winter months and then cricket in the summer. It was a childhood dream, really. Four brothers, backyard footy. Ipswich was a working class town and taught me so much about life and about the skills that you need to navigate your way through life.
When did you and your brothers first come in contact, and the Walters family first come in contact with the Langers, a sort of a union that has gone down in Queensland and Australian rugby league folklore?
Yeah, that was would have been in the late 70s, middle to late 70s. There's a committee in Ipswich called the Parents and Old Boys. So that was the parents and the old boys of the Ipswich Schoolboy Rugby League committee, and Dad used to host the meetings. They were fortnightly on a Thursday night, and that's where Alfie's dad used to come in, Harry, and used to come to our house at Merton Street, along with probably 10 to 15 other men, depending on their availability, and they would have their meetings, sort of fundraising, planning the year to raise money for the under-11, for the Ipswich under-11, under-12 schoolboy side. So that's how we first got into contact, and sometimes the Langers would come over and we'd get a game of backyard footy on with the lights in the backyard while the meeting was going ahead. So it was absolutely amazing.
Instant friendship?
Instant friendship, yeah. Without, because the ages of all the boys, and of course Desley was obviously a female, but the boys all lined up in their age group. So they were Norse and we were Booval Swifts, and They used to play against each other all the way through the underage stuff into senior football, and then played together for the Jets and also against each other. You know, Kevvie went to West, Kevvie Langer went to West, and the like. So they're a talented bunch too, the Langers. As were, you know, we had a pretty good crew as well.
And what was footy like in Ipswich? You mentioned Booval and
Booval Swifts. So I was down the road, like 400, 500 metres down the road, and that's how Kerrod and I'm not sure about the other boys, that we used to use that as part of our training, sprinting between telegraph poles, jog the next sprint. It was only 4 or 5, it wasn't far down the road, and that was the beauty of it as well. You know, most parents these days got to put kids in cars and drive them to training, whereas we just used to run down the end of the road, and there was the football field. It was a great club, Booval Swifts in Ipswich, very strong club, produced Australian players and state and representative players for Queensland and Ipswich and the old city country as well. He used to have a lot of country players come out of Booval Swifts, so it was a really strong club and gave us a great breeding ground. I was very fortunate, Mark, as a youngster coming through from the under-7s right through, that had very good coaches to teach me the basics of rugby league, and Kerrod and my other brothers as well. My first coach was Phil Gardner in the under-7s, and he was a school teacher around at the school at East Ipswich, at the school we went to, and just taught us so many great things about the basics of rugby league: catching, passing, tackling, and also the play the ball was a big one for him as well. So every session, you know, we'd learn and try to develop those skills over our junior years, which I was very grateful for.
when did it start getting serious for you?
Oh, from under-7s, Mark, certainly. Yeah. Well, they had grand finals in those days in that age group, and we made, I think Kerrod and I made just about every age group and won nearly every one except for 1 or 2. So, and, you know, I know there's a lot of noise around now about, you know, what that does to kids, but, you know, I think it's a great lesson to learn at a young age that you can win or you can lose. And winning's fun and great, and you can learn from winning, but also you can learn equally as much from losing and how to get better, and how next time you get to that environment that you fix your mistakes that you made to win. You know what I mean? I feel it was a great learning curve for us, and playing sport also teaches you so many things about life and being part of a team and the discipline required to be a good team member. So many things have taught me in life, you know, from the skills and the part of being involved in a team.
So then when were you first noticed in regards to maybe making a professional career out of it?
Yeah, so that was 86. I was playing for the Jets in the under-19s, it was, Kerrod and I. We used to play in the Brisbane Rugby League competition. And then I got a phone call from Wayne Bennett, who was heading down to the Raiders in 1987 to be their sort of assistant coach or co-coach with Don Ferner. And I had some, Wayne knew who we were, and Wayne thought it was a good idea. It would be a good idea to, again, split Kerrod and I up. Back in those days, Mark, the Queensland, the New South Wales clubs, like the Raiders, were only allowed 3 imports per year to stop the influx of Queenslanders heading to Sydney to play in the New South Wales Rugby League. So the 3 Raider imports were myself, Peter Jackson, and who was the third one? I'm just trying to think who that was, but Peter was the first one, I was the second. So, and I went to and there was obviously a lot of Queenslanders already there with, you know, Mel Meninga, Gary Coyne, my brother Stephen was there, Sam Bacco, God bless him.
Badge.
Gary Belcher, Jay Hoffman was there. There was a host of Queenslanders that were already there. So it really became this home away from home for the Queenslanders. So I was very grateful. And we had Wayne Bennett as our coach, and we had the current Australian coach in Don Ferner there, who was a master coach, beautiful with his people skills, and such a great club to go. I was very fortunate to go there.
What was it like there? Now, it might seem a strange question nowadays, you know, Canberra is such a big city, etc. But you're coming from Ipswich, you've grown up with your twin brother, and a family was very, and still is very important to you. Yeah. To move to Canberra to be on your own for the first time, how long did it take you to acclimatise?
Oh, not very long at all, because, you know, we'd watch so much of the Sydney League, you know, on telly, and watching all these players, and then all of a sudden I was going down to join them and play with them and against them. You know, it was quite an easy decision to go, to be honest, because you feel like it was a great opportunity. I was in my second year as an apprentice carpenter, so that continued down there. So they transferred my apprenticeship forms from a Queensland building to ACT building, which is not that much different, but I was allowed to pursue my career as a carpenter as well and finish that. So I went down there with my girlfriend at the time, Kim, and we ended up getting married, obviously. But yeah, we had a great time in Canberra. It was a really special time, particularly with the success we had down there as well, and being around all the Queenslanders. Mel Meninga was the captain, or Dean Lance at first, and then Mel became the captain. So it was a great place to be.
The timing was great, as you mentioned. They were building some sort of team. Looking back on that time now, what are your memories of the players you played with and that Canberra team?
Well, I just remember being so grateful to have so many good players in that side. Some future, obviously, some of our greatest players in the game ever, and Mal's an immortal. He was the big ringleader of all that. Gary Belcher was such a great player. Peter Jackson, such a great player. Sam Backer, all these guys playing. Gary Coyne, all these players that had such great careers. And for me to be dropped into that environment, Steve Walters, another one. He's in the best top 100. I think of all.
Throw Lazo in there, Brad Clyde.
Glenn Lazarus, Brad Clyde, Ricky Stewart, Laurie Daly.
It's just amazing when you listen, isn't it?
And I just thought, well, this is how it works here. First year we got into the grand final, the last game at the SCG. Admittedly, I came off the bench, and there's some memories now where they flash back to up into the stand, and there's Wayne Bennett, Don Ferner, and then there's me sitting up there in the stand as the replacement. I thought, what am I doing up there? And I remember that they said I was about to go and walk out where all the reserves sit on the bench, and I think it was Don Ferner said to me, Kevvie, you come up and sit up with us. We can give you some information here on the grand final, because Mal had broken his arm, came back the week before against East and got us into the grand final. So he started, and it was a very hot day. So I replaced Mal with about 15 minutes to go. But it was just as a young 20-year-old or 21, just a great experience. And I thought, well, I want a bit more of this, except win next time, And as it happened a couple of years later, we're back there again, and I came off the bench again, and then I, made my decision to move back to Brisbane.
Why?
Well, I just thought, at the time, I had a couple of blokes in Canberra. I'm just trying to think of their names. Ricky Stewart and some bloke called Daly, Laurie Daly, we're going to be the halves there for long term. So I thought, well, I can play a little bit of first grade here, and do my best, or I can go back to Brisbane. Wayne Bennett was coaching there. Alfie was there. Kerrod was there. I always enjoyed playing with those guys, and they were in first grade, obviously. So I just thought, well, if I'm going to play somewhere, I might as well play at the Broncos and see and roll the dice there. And as it happened, it worked out, really well. So it was a good decision. Money-wise, there was more money in Canberra than Brisbane, but I didn't sort of do it for the money. I went for just to get back home around our families, and also I'm quite envious of Kerrod and Alf. The Broncos in '89, Kerrod, they were both playing for Australia. Kerrod was playing for Queensland and Australia, and I thought, well, if he can do it, I'm as good as Kerrod. Surely I can do it. And that was the motivation of those two more than any, to come back and really work hard to get a spot at the Broncos.
Well, once again, you arrived at a great time with so many good young players developing. What are your memories of those years, those premiership years with Brisbane?
Oh, I remember training really hard. Certainly Kelvin Giles was the head trainer there. We trained as hard as I've ever trained. The only time I trained hard, I reckon, was 1984 at Ipswich Grammar with Steve Nance. He was our coach of the first 15 up there, and he used to run up hills and do all these things that were new to me as a player. And Kelvin was exactly the same. We trained really hard. We started lifting weights really seriously, and he transformed the club as much as Wayne Bennett into the club that it is, today. He was a great trainer, world class, and obviously Wayne was the coach, and Wayne's history shows that he's a pretty good coach as well.
So when did Origin come onto the radar for you, and what were your memories of thinking that you might be good enough and one day be selected to play for Queensland?
Yeah, well, I guess that's always a dream, and '89 was my first time around the team. Mal had got sick through the week, so I flew up a couple of days before the game. They weren't sure whether Mal was going to play or not. He ended up pulling out, and I got on the bench on the interchange for Game 3 of the '89 series, and it was just such a great experience. Sitting around the dressing room, and I think I was playing. Might have been playing reserve grade at the time. I played a lot of first grade, but also a lot of reserve grade as well, sort of 50-50. And to get dragged in around that group, and Kerrod was having a great series. I think he got the man of the series. That he probably told you a few times, did he, Mark? Kerrod, yeah. But he had a great game, and I've still got a photo at home on the wall of of Kerrod and I sort of after the game. Kerrod's jersey's got blood all over it, and chalk marks on it, and dirt and grime, and my jersey's still got the marks of the press, down each side, and also the tag was floating around here. So I got on for the last 5 minutes, which I was very grateful for. You're not going to hook Alfie or Wally, I would have thought, because in those days there was no interchange. Once you're off, you're done. So I got the last 5 minutes, but it was a great experience. And then again, just giving me a really good taste of playing in that arena, certainly.
And wanting it again.
And wanting it again and again, and as much as you can, yeah, for sure.
So when you ran out for the first time in the starting lineup, or, as opposed to sitting on the bench waiting, what difference was there?
Oh, you're straight into the action, so much better. I mean, sitting there in back before interchange became part, or even interchange now, if you're sitting there, some players don't get on for till the second half in some instances. So it is nerve-wracking watching the game, and you can burn energy, but it's always best starting, I feel. And my first start, I think, was in '92 after Wally retired, and it was. We did it pretty tough against New South Wales in '92, '93, '94 until the Nevilles come into it, and they saved us in '95. But yeah, we never got clean sweep, I didn't think, but it was always tough against New South Wales because Queensland had dominated sort of in the late '80s, and then the early '90s, New South Wales began to dominate with some world-class players coming through for the Blues.
You sort of alluded to it there. You were given the honour of replacing Wally Lewis in that number 6 jersey.
Pretty big shoes to fill.
That was the question. What was that like? Is that one of the most intimidating things you've had to do in your career?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly was. I'm certainly no Wally Lewis, and he was. What did he win? 7 or 8 man of the matches? I don't know how many he's won. Well, let's go back to your trivia for that. But enormous amount, and been such a big player for Queensland. So it was always going to be, whoever was going to wear that jersey was always probably going to struggle a bit, given the outside noise around Wally's jumper. So I think Queensland had 3 or 4 cracks at different people in that jersey in the early days when I was there, trying to get it right. But there's only one Wally Lewis. I look back now and I felt like I maybe could have played a bit better at Origin level, but it was sort of, that's one of my sort of, not so much regrets, but I feel like I could have played a bit better in the earlier days. But State of Origin's tough. It's a tough arena.
Well, you played 20 matches, so you obviously did something wrong to be continually invited back. What does that mean to you that you have had a career? We asked you about being your fault, but the fact that you're able to play 20 times.
Yeah, I'll look back on fond memories, nothing but fond memories. Particularly the older I got, I felt the more comfortable I was, playing for Queensland. At first, you probably feel like, hang on, what am I doing here? Do I belong in this environment? The question marks are there. But as you get used to the environment and you get better yourself and more mature as a player, some players handle it very easily, and others, take a bit of time adjusting to that new environment. So, I was very grateful for my time for Queensland. It really did. It was a real highlight of my rugby league career. To not only play for Queensland, but also coach Queensland. That was a real buzz as well.
Yeah, we'll get to that because I want to ask you a question with regards to playing and to be able to play with both brothers, Kerrod and Stephen. What did that mean to you?
Oh, it was unbelievable, really, from the backyard days at Merton Street, to playing together. It's just when you get into camp, because Stephen was always at the Raiders, Kerrod was always at the Broncos. So I spent some time with Steve early in my career down at the Raiders and then back to Brisbane with Kerrod. So, I love playing with both of them. It was just great to have them around. Sort of not so much took it for granted, but it was, it's a big, looking back, it's a big thing to have 3 of us play for Queensland. And really special time for Mum and Dad in particular. They loved going to Origin, and particularly,
not having to cut their way in.
Yeah, not having to cut their way in through a hole in the fence. Yeah, of course. Yeah, they got tickets back in those days then. So, yeah, it was. I'm really proud of that too for Mum and Dad. Like they did a lot of work. Us as kids, growing up, just the discipline of being in a team, and sometimes you're not always picked in the team. Dad was always, so positive with his instructions and his advice. It was never, blame this person or blame that person. If you're going to look somewhere, look at yourself first and make sure that you're doing everything that you can, to be the person that you can. And I always remember that from KG. Never blame people. Look at yourself, fix yourself up, and everything will be okay.
Maybe an impossible question. From a playing perspective, is there a moment that stands out in your Origin career?
Yeah, well, it's a couple that the debut, that photo with Kerrod was really special. The miracle try, that was just unbelievable how that all happened. We were behind and they were dominant. They were dominating us for most of the game, and somehow Willie Kahn scored a try at a dummy half. It was game 1 of the series in Sydney, which was always tough to win down there. It still is to this day today. And then they kicked off and we managed to string some passes together, and Corny finished it off. And it was just an amazing try. I could still recall all the blokes involved. And it's replayed a lot on telly, and whenever Origin's on, it's always remembered. But we celebrated that night, that's for sure.
So from the playing to the coaching, what does it mean to you to be in that elite group, to have played and coached?
Yeah, again, very grateful for the opportunity. I'm not sure if it was ever going to come about, because I was in coaching. Had been an assistant with Mal, and then when Mal decided to move on, the opportunity came up and I grabbed it with both hands. It was a brilliant Queensland team that Mal handed the baton on to me from. They've been so successful. So there was a lot of heat, and there always is with coaching Queensland, particularly through that period. I think we won 8 out of the last 10 series, something like that. So it was a really strong team, captained by Cameron Smith, Thurston, Slater, Inglis, Miles, how many players? You could roll a few more out. There's so many great players in that side. So it was a real privilege and a great opportunity for myself as a coach, to coach those guys.
How did you cope with watching rather than playing, having no real control over the game?
Look, I was okay. I guess I'd always want to be a coach. So when I walked off in 2000, 2001, coaching was something that I always wanted to do. So I guess I adjusted well when you got Cameron Smith and Jonathan Thurston and Cooper Cronk out on the field. Greg Inglis, Matty Scott, Sam Thaiday, the list goes on. Those guys in control of your side. Because I was fortunate, I had worked with Cameron, Cooper and Billy at the Melbourne Storm for a couple of years as an assistant coach. So I knew a lot about those guys and their mentality, and they're real leaders, The best teams and best state of origin teams, led by the coach, but also well supported by a very strong leadership group from the players. And we had that in buckets and spades, yeah.
You say you'd always wanted to be a coach. You've travelled the world trying to get the opportunity to coach, being over at Catalans, etc., coaching the Ipswich Jets, and then getting the opportunity to Queensland and then the Brisbane Broncos.
Yeah.
You've been so successful in your playing career. From a coaching perspective, is that still burning the fact that you were beaten in the grand final? And
we're going to talk about this as Origin stuff, isn't it, mate?
It is, but it's also about Kevvie.
Yeah, it's part of my career. Look,
yeah.
I'm actually really proud of my time as a head coach at the Broncos. When I walked through into the Broncos, they weren't in a very well. They were finished last, So there's a lot of work to be done. When you finish last, you're doing a lot of things wrong, And so that was my job to fix that. I did fix it. Made some changes. Made some tough calls on players. Made some tough calls on coaches. And we got there to the grand final. We were in front, and then the football gods, I'm going to say, just wanted Penrith to win, and Penrith won. So, but I'm really proud. I'm disappointed with the result, obviously, in the grand final, but from where they were, the Broncos, to where we got them to, that sits as a really, equally as anything with Queensland. I'm really proud of the fact that I was able to do that in my time, at the Broncos. And the grand final win would have been just superb. Dream over, basically, but that hasn't happened. So the dream's still alive in clubland.
Watch this space.
But right now I'm coaching the Kangaroos. I'm, again, so grateful for that opportunity. And I'm going to put all my energy and all my time into making sure the Kangaroos are very successful.
Who's had the biggest influence on your career?
Mum and Dad from an early part. My brothers, obviously, Brett, Steve, Drewy, and Kerrod. And then I guess Alfie's been around there a lot, influential in many ways. And, I can't leave Wayne Bennett out of the equation either. Craig Bellamy was very good for me, my time at the Storm. Mal Meninga, my time at Origin. So Arthur Beetson, I always remember being coached by Arthur and just in awe of him being around the team and the way he's a very relaxed character. But when it was time to go to work, it was time to go to work. And that's what I liked, about Arthur. Wally Lewis, coached me for Queensland as well. So I had so many great mentors. Tim Sheens. So to single it down to just one, I mean, what's that old saying about the village? It takes a village to raise a child. The same thing with coaching. You get all your information and knowledge from so many different people, and it's up to you to collate that information and then roll it in a manner that works for you and suits your personality.
I know the journey is still continuing, but what do you reckon the young bloke who went to Booval Swifts with his twin brother would have thought, bare feet, under sevens, in 30, 40, 50 years' time, looking back and saying, well, 6 premierships, played 20 origins, nearly 300 NRL games, coached state and country. What do you reckon that young kid would think?
Oh, he'd be at a birthday, he'd be at a party. I'm going to be having a party, Mark. When you look, you just roll through life, and life throws up many different circumstances and challenges as such. And I feel the best way is to just keep moving forward. I've got a lot of belief in myself as a person, and particularly my coaching days now as a coach. I'm just really excited about the future. I'm not getting any younger, obviously, but not getting any older either, I believe.
Well, Kevin Walters, FOG number 63, thank you so much for your time and congratulations on a wonderful career that's still going.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'm grateful to be on the show, and thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of the FOGS Queenslander Podcast. If there's a FOG you want to hear from, leave a comment to let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our videos.